Every Thanksgiving, thousands of families gather at airports across America. Children wait impatiently with handmade signs. Parents count down the minutes until someone they love walks through the arrivals doors. Grandparents wipe away happy tears before the reunion even begins. For most people, an airport is a place where families become whole again. But at one airport, there was an old man who came every Thanksgiving, even though nobody was coming for him. He wasn't waiting for a flight. He wasn't expecting a visitor. Yet year after year, he returned to the very same chair. Most people walked past without giving him a second thought, until one little girl asked a question that nobody else had ever asked. His name was Frank Walker. He was 103 years old, a United States Army World War II veteran. His back had become bent with age. His hands trembled almost constantly. His hearing wasn't as sharp as it used to be. Walking even a short distance required patience. But every Thanksgiving morning, he polished his old shoes, carefully buttoned his faded army jacket, placed his black World War II veteran cap on his head, picked up his wooden cane, and drove to the airport. He never missed a year, not once. The airport employees knew him. The security officers smiled when they saw him. Some of the airline staff even saved his favorite chair near the arrivals gate. Most assumed he was waiting for family. None of them knew the real reason. 80 years earlier, Frank wasn't an old man. He was 19 years old, full of energy, full of dreams. And like millions of young Americans, he had answered his country's call. Somewhere in Europe, he met another young soldier. His name was Tommy Sullivan. The two became friends almost immediately. They shared meals, shared stories, shared fear, shared hope. When supplies were short, they shared food. When nights became cold, they shared blankets. When the future seemed uncertain, they shared courage. War has a strange way of turning strangers into brothers. Frank often said, "You don't choose your family in the army. Life chooses them for you." One cold evening, the two young soldiers sat together drinking hot coffee from dented metal cups. Tommy smiled, then laughed. "You know what I'm gonna do after this war?" Frank shrugged. Tommy grinned. "I'm gonna fly home for Thanksgiving every single year." Frank laughed. "You can't afford that." Tommy pointed at him. "Then you can meet me at the airport." Both men laughed. Tommy extended his hand. "No matter how old we get, we'll meet at the airport every Thanksgiving." Frank shook his hand. "It's a promise." Neither of them imagined how much those two simple words would one day mean. 80 years had passed. Frank still kept that promise. Every Thanksgiving, he returned to the airport. Not because Tommy's flight was arriving. Tommy never came home. But promises, real promises, don't disappear simply because time moves on. So Frank came anyway. He sat quietly, watching children run into their father's arms, watching husbands kiss their wives, watching grandparents hold grandchildren they hadn't seen in months. Every reunion made him smile, because every reunion reminded him just how precious coming home really is. That Thanksgiving, a little girl around 6 years old noticed the old veteran sitting by himself. She watched him smiling at every family that embraced. She looked up at her mother. "Can I go talk to him?" Her mother smiled. "Of course." The little girl slowly walked toward the old soldier. She stopped in front of him. He looked up and smiled. Then she asked the question nobody else had ever. "Grandpa, are you waiting for somebody too?" Frank looked toward the arrivals doors. Another family embraced. A father lifted his little daughter into the air. Frank smiled, then quietly answered, "No." A gentle silence filled the space between them. Then he softly continued, "I just like watching families find each other again." The little girl didn't fully understand, but she understood enough. She quietly opened her little backpack, reached inside, and removed a tiny American flag. Her teacher had handed it to her at school that week. She gently placed it into Frank's weathered hands. Then she smiled. "Until your family gets here, can I wait with you?" Frank couldn't answer, not right away. His lips trembled. His eyes slowly filled with tears. He looked at the flag, then at the little girl. Finally, he whispered, "Sweetheart, you already are." The little girl smiled and quietly sat beside him. Neither of them spoke again. Together, they simply watched families come home. Sometimes, the greatest acts of kindness aren't expensive. They aren't complicated. Sometimes, they're as simple as refusing to let another human being feel alone. Frank didn't leave the airport with gifts. He didn't leave with flowers. He didn't leave with applause. He left with something far more valuable: hope. Hope that even after 80 years, the next generation still remembered. Not just the war, but the people who lived through it. One day, there will come a Thanksgiving when Grandpa Frank's chair will be empty. No polished shoes, no faded army jacket, no old wooden cane resting beside him. But perhaps a little boy or a little girl will walk past that chair, remember his story, and choose to sit beside someone else who is alone. Because that's how kindness survives. One person remembers, then another, then another. And as long as that continues, heroes never truly leave us. They simply live on in the hearts of those who remember. Thank you, Grandpa Frank. And thank you to every member of America's greatest generation. America remembers.